currently on his plate. These are just the two biggest ones. Well, who better to ask than former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer, who was at the podium the days after 9/11, as well as the beginning of the war in Iraq. Ari's also president of Fleischer Communications and a Fox News contributor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kennedy.
So let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, put yourself back in the Oval Office. How do you tackle these two things, which appear to be no-win situations, both of them?
The same way in both. He should listen. That's what presidents do on times like this. You need to go to Puerto Rico and listen to the people who are suffering, the victims of the hurricane. And then when he gets to Las Vegas, listen to the stories of those who lost their loved one. They want to be able to describe what their husband, their son was like. Presidents need to sometimes just be a good ear, and that solves problems.
And how does he do in those situations?
I think it's mixed, frankly. I think he's such an organizer. That's his skill. He goes in and he organizes mayors and FEMA and people like that to make sure they're getting the job done. The part about if you were looking for a president who was going to hug and kiss and be warm, that's not his style. That really is not him. And George W. Bush was much more like that. Bill Clinton was much more like that. Barack Obama, not so much either.
Yeah.
But presidents have their own style. I think what's most important is, are you getting the aid to the people who need it? And certainly on the first two hurricanes the United States government did. This one is a different series of challenges.
It really is.
And I don't blame the president or anybody else for it.
No, and it is frustrating because, we've seen those aid containers sitting in the ports, and the country, it doesn't have a lot of bridges. The roads are washed out. It's really hard to get those critical supplies to people who really need them. And that's when you're just in survival mode. But beyond that, they are going to need everything rebuilt from the bottom up. I mean, they need a foundation. They need infrastructure. And that's going to take a lot of money.
And, Kennedy, to get into the feud that took place between Mayor Cruz and President Trump, the fact of the matter is the mayor's job is to be an organizer. It is to coordinate. It is to plan. It is not to be a first responder out on the street.
So how did she do?
Well, when she said, even prior to the dust-up with Trump, that she doesn't have time for planning meetings, this is what she said on CBS on September 27th. The mayor's job is to be in planning meetings. This is how FEMA delivers help to people. This is how government agencies do coordinate. The job of a mayor is to be a coordinator.
Well, and FEMA does have the money. They've got the resources, and they've got the systems. For better or for worse, whether you agree that that's how the government should be spending their money, that's how the government's spending their money. So if that's what you need, and you want to get it to the people in your city, and she claims that they are dying and drinking out of creeks, I sure as hell would be at more of those FEMA meetings than just one.
Well, that's exactly right. That is your job. Your job is to plan, coordinate, organize. This is the municipal leader's job.
Yeah.
And if you want us to be a first responder, perfectly fine, but be a first responder, but not a mayor. That's what mayors do, and especially a hurricane-prone island where preparedness, being ready for what could go wrong, is part of a mayor's portfolio.
Do you think that John Kelly in the Oval Office as the new chief of staff, have you seen the effect and the impact, and has it been positive?
Oh, absolutely. Now we're going beyond Las Vegas, beyond the hurricane. It's a much more smoothly functioning White House.
Yeah.
A lot less factions, a lot less leaks, and that's terribly important.
And how does the president cut up his day? Because when you've got North Korea and you've got those critical briefings and you've got a fluid situation and a tyrant with nuclear weapons, and then you still have hurricane disaster fallout in Texas and Florida. So how do you break up the day?
It's not hard at all. The chief of staff organizes it as such.
Yeah.
In a 12-hour day, you can have a lot of meetings, and that's what presidents do. And you have a different cast of characters involved in those different meetings. North Korean people have nothing to do with the situation in Las Vegas, and so you have different briefers come in, and it's the chief of staff's job is to organize those meetings and for the president to hear it from the experts, move quickly from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Welcome to the White House. That's how it works.
Do you think the first year will be seen as a success given some of the challenges that he's created and faced?
I think a lot depends on whether Congress takes meaningful action on tax reform. If it passes in the House, if it looks like it might pass in the Senate, then I think you can conclude yes, given all the other successes the president's had on the regulatory front, certainly on the foreign policy front, where we are destroying ISIS. We are doing some of the things with the military we always should have been doing. The other big factor, Kennedy, too, that nobody gives him credit for, nobody talks about, is if GDP stays at 3%, if we continue to have an economy that's growing strong and wages rise for the middle class, that in and of itself could carry Trump to success and Republicans.
Yeah, and if he gets one more quarter of 3% growth, it's much easier to sell that tax reform plan, which is really based on higher revenues coming in from businesses that are now making more money. Ari Fleischer, thank you so much for being here. Please come back.
Hey,
Always
Kennedy.